Fun conversations that you can share forward. It's what we do every day on arrow.net, ARROE.net. All right, let's do it. Let's play it forward. These are real people, real stories, the struggle to play it forward. Episode number 413 is with author Greg Brennecka, the creator of the book Impact.
Doing great in non-snowy California right now.
Oh, man. Yeah. I'll tell you the thing. One of the biggest shockers of California to me was we flew out to San Francisco. We got a convertible. Oh, we're going to do the Pacific Coast Highway with the top down. No, we froze our butts off, man. That's a different world out there. Oh, my God.
It's cold, yeah.
But, being out there in California, it kind of reminds me of, I grew up in Montana. Meteors were a major part of our lives because that big sky country is wide open. It's a canvas.
Yeah, there's no light pollution up there. You can see everything. It's great.
What got you into meteors? I mean, was it the fact that things were falling, or was it just the great mystery of what are these things?
I got into it just because I liked being outside, and I kind of was trained as a geologist in undergraduate, and then got into graduate school and ended up just taking a class in meteorites, and just really found them fascinating objects, and the fact that we could learn so much from them about the early solar system. That's where I got hooked, I guess.
The name of the book is Impact. I'll tell you, there's a lot of science classes that better be putting this inside their rooms because you unveil some things I had no clue even take place.
Yeah, thanks. There's a lot of stuff we get from meteorites that I think a lot of people are very surprised at. And I certainly was one of those people when I was taking this class in graduate school for the first time. And that's, like I said, why I got hooked is because there's just so much that are contained in these things. There's such diverse, interesting objects.
Well, 100 tons of extraterrestrial material is added to the Earth every day. How?
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, I like to think of it as 75 Volkswagen Golfs are coming our way every day. But luckily they're just small bits, basically in dust form. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of dust that's kind of fallen from outer space, and some of these rocks are softball size or even larger sometimes. But most of the material we get is in the form of dust. But it's a lot of material.
Yeah, when I read that about the 100 tons of stuff coming down, the first picture I had was Wall-E out there and just putting around, just trying to clean up the planet. Because if it looks, are we really a dust collector?
You know what? That's what gravity does. Exactly. We're a dust collector. The sun's a dust collector. Everybody's a dust collecter.
Now, what's this that meteorites actually stop wars? What happened here?
So actually, it was I believe it was a situation in ancient Mesopotamia, or I'm sorry, not Mesopotamia, Anatolia. Said the wrong thing. There was a battle going on. We had a cosmic event, and both parties just kind of were like, they looked up and were like, you know what, why are we warring? What are we doing? And they just kind of stopped. And that was, kind of a really interesting period of history, which kind of both sides agreed to just kind of lay down their arms because they had something really interesting happening in the cosmos.
Well, meteorites are part of the reason why I enjoy summer here in the Carolinas, because we get those showers that last it can be 3-4 nights in a row.
Right. Yeah. They're really spectacular when you get to see them. But
they've got to be on the horizon. You talked about eye pollution before. That's the one thing that big cities, they kind of miss out on the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, light pollution's certainly a big problem for people who enjoy looking at the stars. You need to be in places like rural Montana is a great one, of course.
Oh, my God. That if it wasn't a meteor shower, then it was sonic booms that would just scare the hell out of you. So now, in essence, are meteorites aliens?
I guess how you define alien. They're certainly not of this world. So, this world being Earth. So, yeah, I guess in that case, they are aliens.
Well, because they come down here and they change what we're doing. I mean, it's part of our evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have certainly, changed basically everything about Earth. It would nowhere near be the same place. It'd probably just be a dead hunk of rock if it wasn't for meteorites.
Yeah, I keep waiting for Pfizer to announce that. Well, we know we had COVID taken care of, but boy, we really have it now because it's coming from a meteorite. We're going to take some of the minerals from this thing, and it really works.
That would make people notice meteorites for sure. This book would have nothing on that.
Now, one of the things that, the skies and stuff like that have always affected different religions and things like that. I didn't know that meteorites really actually, touched the religious world and it changed some people.
Absolutely. Probably one of the most important turning points in Christianity, for example, is that St. Paul,
Yep.
originally was the story goes he was certainly against followers of Jesus. And then he was, on this trip, and this large meteorite airburst happened, knocked him off his horse. He went blind for a few days. And then he basically converted and became this evangelist for Christianity, and really kind of turned Christianity into what it is today, as opposed to just a small following. And that actually, is very consistent with a meteorite airburst. And we see a lot of those types of medical things happen in there's an airburst in 2013 in Russia, in which people went blind for a few days.
Wow.
And something fell off their eyes, like in the story in the Bible. So, this is kind of, based on science, is this can actually happen. And so that's one of the major inflection points in Christianity, and there's quite a few more as well. But yeah, it's really remarkable how much these things have affected different religions.
Are they pieces, parts from planets or from comets? Where are they coming from? This dirt, this dust.
It's kind of a mix. So, some of them are failed planets that didn't really get big enough. So they're kind of small planets that it formed, and we call them planetesimals. Some of them actually are pieces of planets. So we have chunks of Mars. We've got over 300 pieces of Mars in the form of meteorites, which is nice because we don't have pieces of Mars otherwise. And some of them are possibly pieces of comets, like you mentioned. There's definitely some speculation on some of the different types of meteorites that have a lot in common with some comets that we've been able to study.
Speaking of Mars, do you think Perseverance is getting beat up by some meteorites over there in Mars? Because they've got gravity, do they not?
They definitely have gravity, yeah. So probably, chances of Perseverance getting hit is the same as a Mini Cooper getting hit here on Earth. So it's probably not in too much danger statistically. But it's actually some of the rovers found a few different meteorites on Mars as they were driving around. They found a couple iron meteorites, which is kind of really, really cool to think about, finding a meteorite on a different planet.
So now the average person, if they were to go out, I wish I could take everybody on the little tours that we used to do on the ranch in Ranchester, Wyoming when I was a kid. We used to spend hours out there looking at all the rocks that were in the open fields, thinking that this has got to be a meteor, man, because it doesn't look like a normal rock.
Yes, it is very common to just kind of hunt around and look for weird looking rocks, and sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes it actually is a meteorite. But it's pretty difficult to tell the difference. Sometimes the easiest way is to actually see one fall, of course, and then
right.
it's a meteorite.
Would it not be hot if you were to rush over to it?
Actually, they're usually quite cold. So they kind of have this fireball streak as they come through the atmosphere, and then they reach terminal velocity, and then they just kind of drop after that. But these things have been sitting in sub-zero temperatures of space for billions of years. So the interior is actually quite frosty when they fall. So the outer millimeter or so is the only thing that gets hot.
Man, it's like dry ice from outer space.
Yes, even colder, actually.
Oh my God! Now, it's
crazy.
What have you personally learned from all of this? Because the attraction is that you keep growing with it. But you've got to be learning new things.
Oh, absolutely. We continue to learn an immense amount. The study of meteorites didn't really get started until we were starting to gear up for the moon landing. So this is a very, very young science when it comes to actually what we've learned from meteorites. My group is really focused on kind of time scales of how planets form and how the sun formed and how long this actually takes. So that's one thing we look at as a group. And I find that to be really fascinating about how fast it takes to form the sun or different planets.
Just the fact that if I found one, how old is it? And how could you ever tell? You'd have to meet up with a scientist like yourself.
Yeah, so almost all meteorites are probably on the order of 4.5 billion years old. I know, with a B. That's really, really old. So this is the very start of the solar system. There are some meteorites that come from like the surface of Mars or different asteroids that are a little bit younger than that. Mars is a geologically active planet, so there are volcanoes so you can get stuff that is much younger, in the millions of years old from Mars. But most of them are quite old, which is great for us, for people that like to study the very early solar system, because they are these perfect time capsules.
Now, how did King Tut get his hands on some so he could have that knife?
Well, talking about light pollution, the ancient Egyptians definitely didn't have any light pollution. So that was one benefit. And probably what happened is that, they've got large expanses of desert, and probably not only do they see a lot of meteorites fall, but they found probably a significant amount of iron meteorites. And ancient Egypt, they were not able to make iron. Humanity wasn't basically able to make iron in its, kind of elemental form to make weapons and metal until kind of, 900, 1200 BCE. So, in the time of ancient Egypt, if you found a chunk of metal that was this big shiny rock that, was hard and had all these properties that you couldn't even make with your current technology, that's a pretty valuable thing. And that's why, King Tut probably had a knife that was made of meteoritic iron because it was such a valuable, just metal that just couldn't be produced in ancient Egypt.
Oh, can you imagine being in a battle with that knife and you're stuck with a stick, and you take
you're battling some guy with a giant knife or a sword that's made of some metal that you don't even know exists. Yeah, you're fighting a lightsaber or something right now.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say, talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi here, man.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's actually some stories of historical figures that say wielded a weapon from the heavens, and so it's possible these people were actually using these types of tools in battle and became famous because they had properties that people couldn't create at the time.
So if we're being pummeled with 100 tons of extraterrestrial material, what's happening up there with the International Space Station? Are they getting hit? Because I sure don't hear stories about that.
Most of the stuff we get is in dust form. Oh. So I'm sure they're getting hit by small pieces of dust, and that's not too big of an issue. So most of the material that actually comes is in really small dust form. We're not getting pelted by, large basketball-sized rocks that often. They do happen, but they're pretty rare. So that's kind of where we are with that. It's not too big of a danger simply because space is so gigantic and there's not that many large items that are hitting us.
So when we see that falling star, as we always call it, but the meteorite that's falling, is it large? And then because how does it make such a large streak across the sky?
It's going really fast. Most of the shooting stars that we see are actually small pieces, about the size of a piece of sand.
Right.
So most of those are actually really, really small pieces. It's rare to have something, tennis ball, softball sized, that will certainly cause a streak like that. But most of them we see are actually, kind of sand particles that come into the atmosphere.
Because that's all I read anymore when on my Google News and all that kind of stuff. A meteorite was 29 whatever thousand miles from Earth, and they make them look like they're bigger than a refrigerator.
Yeah, well, it's fun to be sensational about the size of these meteorites. Most of them are pretty small. It's not going to take too big a one to cause a major issue, on Earth, but chances are fairly low.
Yeah. So how does the ocean play out in all this?
From a contemporary standpoint, there's a large swaths of the ocean that actually receive a lot of, kind of ingredients and nutrients from micrometeorites, like we were talking about, these little sand particles. That don't have, things like phosphorus or iron sources. So there's, plankton in the middle of, let's say, the Atlantic, get a lot of their, phosphorus and iron from above. They get micrometeorites, and that's largely how they are able to survive.
So do you think that some of that washes up on the shore and we just think it's part of the sand?
Most of it is probably dissolved in the ocean or used by life. Basically, once a meteorite is going to land in a big puddle of salt water, it's not going to last too long. So it's unfortunately ruined for science at that point.
I kept waiting for you to tell me that, the meteorites, more of them land at the Bermuda Triangle than any other place on the planet.
It's like a funnel, yes.
Well, speaking of things like Bermuda Triangle, the Aztecs really had kind of a different kind of a vibe about this.
They did have a different vibe. They actually believed that meteorites were basically poop from the gods. Yep. which is a really fun way to think about what I study. I love that.
I can't wait to share that with my grandkids. I swear to God, they're going to love it. Look, man, the gods are farting on you right now, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, are you going to turn this into a podcast? Because this is the kind of stuff that I would listen to driving to and from work.
I don't have the radio skills that you do, so I won't be able to make that leap. I don't think. I think I'll stick to the safe writing, and that I can go back and correct things if I make a typo or something. It is really interesting stuff, though. I hope somebody does that.
Well, you do make it interesting, and you make it like a coffee table book. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's one of those where you don't want to set it in your where you put normal books. You want it to be there to where that when boring TV is on, I can pick it up and I can pick something up from my imagination.
Well, thanks for saying that. I really tried to make it interesting to as many people as possible. There's a lot of science books out there that are not really accessible to non-experts, and I definitely wanted as many people as possible to be able to read this and understand why we do what we do and what meteorites have given us as a planet and culture.
So why did it take so long to study meteorites? Why did it have to take the trip to the moon? Because we've always been interested in outer space.
We have. Why it took so long is a great question. Part of it was technology. Part of it was that the technology that was invented to go to the moon and to study samples from the moon parlays perfectly into studying meteorites. And that technology just simply didn't exist before. We could look at them and we could say, okay, through a microscope, these are different objects, but getting at how different they are and what that actually means wasn't really possible until we had the machinery and technology that the space race basically created. So that's definitely part of it, is the technology aspect.
The Chinese landed on an asteroid last year, and that brought back some physical evidence of that. I mean, do you find that fascinating, and do you think we're going to do that more often?
Yeah. So I think the JAXA, or the Japanese Space Agency, brought back pieces of Ryugu, which was what's called a carbonaceous chondrite type meteorite, and actually NASA's doing the same with OSIRIS-REx mission. And it's really fascinating. I like to think of it as bringing the meteorites home, going to the meteorites and bringing them home. But yeah, these represents really, really pristine samples that have, obviously no adulteration from Earth. And it's really a cool thing to be able to be part of. I look forward to being able to get some of those samples for sure.
Well, speaking of samples, how would you like to get some of those samples that Perseverance is picking up right now? I mean, I realize we're years away from even just looking at it, but wouldn't you like to be first in line?
Oh man, I hope I'm still in science when those come back. I really hope so, because it's super interesting. And while my part of study is not really looking at life in clays and things like that, man, it's interesting stuff. I really love the kind of risks and cool things that we're doing up in space. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's almost become cool again. I love the fact that people are interested in what's going on up there.
Yeah, this is what happens when we start, sending cool things to cool places. Exploration is something that humans have always loved to do, and restarting that program is really, really important, and it inspires, kind of the youth to get involved, and then you got even brighter minds coming up behind us. It's great.
Wow, dude, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Hey, thanks a lot. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
All right. The same to you, man.